Juliane Koepcke was born on October 10, 1954, in Lima, Peru. Her parents, Hans Wilhelm and Maria Koepcke, were both scientists, her father a zoologist, her mother an ornithologist. When Juliane was a teenager, her parents founded a biological research station called Panguana deep in the Amazon rainforest. Growing up there, she absorbed the rhythms of the jungle, the calls of birds, the rustle of leaves, the dangers of insects, the importance of water. She learned from her parents how to read the forest, how to respect it, and how nature could both nourish and kill. On December 23, 1971, she graduated from high school in Lima. Her plans were to go back to Panguana with her mother, but all flights were full for Christmas Eve. Finally, they managed to board LANSA Flight 508 on December 24th, a decision that would change her life forever. Juliane's father had warned against using that airline. LANSA had a shaky safety record, but they had no other choice that day. The flight took off and climbed into the clouds. As the plane passed over the Amazon, a violent storm gathered. Lightning struck. The cabin jolted violently. Juliane, seated by the window and wearing her seatbelt, felt the wing flex, then break. The aircraft began to disintegrate. In shock, she realized she was falling, still strapped to her row of seats, through the night sky, plunging thousands of feet toward the dense canopy of the rainforest. When she awoke, she lay on the forest floor, in pain and confusion. She had a broken collarbone, cuts on her arms and legs, a concussion, and an injured eye. Her glasses were gone. One shoe was missing. The wreckage of the plane lay scattered around her, among tangled branches and undergrowth. She tried to find her mother, but there was no sign of her. Everything was silent except for the forest, the distant calls of frogs, the hum of insects. She remembered her father's words, "If lost, look for water." She crawled, struggling, until she located a small stream. It was her lifeline. She began to follow it, reasoning that water would eventually lead her to a bigger river and likely to people. She salvaged a small packet of candy from the crash site, perhaps dropped from someone's luggage, and that became her only source of food. She sipped water from the stream and collected rainwater when she could. As she trekked, she felt every injury. Her wound on the arm worsened. Maggots began to infest it, feeding on the flesh. The pain was excruciating, but she knew she had to deal with it. Her survival instincts, shaped by years in the jungle, kicked in. She carried on. The nights were chilling. She had only a thin dress, and the days were hot and humid. She slept under leaves and branches, exposed to rain, insects, and the constant threat of predators. At times, she came across debris from the plane, seats, bits of metal, luggage fragments. On one of those days, she saw row seats with bodies still strapped in them. She stared, hoping one of them might be her mother, but she knew in her heart it wasn't. She had to keep moving. On the fourth day, she heard the cries of vultures circling overhead, a grim reminder of death below. She saw bodies. That sight shook her, but she forced herself to press onward. Hunger gnawed at her, but she rationed her candy, walked longer stretches along the stream, and tried to rest when she could. By the 8th or 9th day, she was weak, dehydrated, and in deep pain. The wound on her arm throbbed constantly. Infection spread. She felt insects biting, leeches pulling at her legs, and each night she shivered under the damp canopy. She thought about giving up. But something inside her, maybe the lessons from her parents, maybe sheer will, refused to let her die. On the 10th day, she stumbled upon something unexpected, a small hut or shelter built by lumber workers. Near it was a fuel container, gasoline. Her heart pounded. She knew what she had to do. In a desperate act of self-care, she poured gasoline onto her infected wound. The pain was intense, but the petrol drove out the maggots. She pulled them out carefully, one by one, perhaps 30 or more. She collapsed for the night in the shelter, exhausted, but relieved. The next morning, she heard voices. Local loggers appeared, shocked to see a barefoot, dirty, wounded girl emerge from the jungle. At first, they thought she might be a forest spirit. But when she spoke Spanish, a language her parents taught her, she identified herself. She told them her name, her story. They cleaned her wounds, gave her food, and prepared to move her down the river. They carried her in a canoe, navigating the Amazon tributary for several hours. The journey was slow and tiring, but eventually they reached a more settled area. From there, she was taken to a small mission station or village. After that, she was flown to a hospital where she received real medical care. Juliane recovered physically, but mentally she carried the weight of what she went through. She helped search parties locate the crash site and identify the bodies of other passengers, including, tragically, her mother. Her mother's body was found about 2 weeks later on January 12, 1972. Juliane provided information to the authorities that helped them in the recovery. After she healed, she returned to Germany. There, she pursued her passion for biology, just like her parents. She studied at the University of Kiel, graduated, and then went on to earn a PhD from the Ludwig Maximilian University of Munich. Her specialization was mammalogy. She became particularly interested in bats. Later, she married Erich Diller, an entomologist, and after her father died, she took over the Panguana Research Station in Peru. She continued to work on conservation and biological research, balancing her life between Germany and Peru. The jungle that nearly killed her became her lifelong home. Her story drew worldwide attention. Werner Herzog made a documentary about her, Wings of Hope, retracing her path through the forest, visiting the crash site, and exploring the river she followed. Juliane also wrote a memoir, When I Fell from the Sky, in which she described her ordeal, her recovery, and how the jungle gave her life back. Even decades later, she said she was often haunted by memories, the snap of branches, the darkness under the canopy, the pain in her arm. Sometimes she wondered why she survived. But she also knew that her survival was no miracle alone. It was built on the foundations her parents gave her: knowledge of nature, respect for the forest, and the ability to remain calm in crisis. She became a symbol of human resilience. Her story inspires not just adventurers or scientists, but anyone facing impossible odds. She showed that survival is not just about strength, but about memory, wisdom, and hope.